Zoro versus Oden from One Piece. That's gonna be two scenarios for y'all tonight because I got oh shit. Oh no. I still have it. I still got it. Um but Zoro versus Oden. Oden in the first scenario, both fights are happening in Wano though, by the way. So Odin's gonna have that advantage. And then like basically just know this too. This is a little bit different than other things. Like it's gonna be the same Odin for both scenarios, but different Zoro. Zoro before he had Conqueror's Hockey in the first scenario, and then in the second scenario, it's when he like has it. And we know he has it because he's fought against King, and he's done shit on Egghead against Rob Lucci, right? Um, so in the first scenario, Zoro like basically like pre-Wano, if you want to say, versus Odin, maxed out with everything he did, during his time when he was alive. Odin has strength. He has speed too. Like Odin, like when I saw Odin going in on Kaido, he was making like some moves, speed feats, like not the fastest moves in One Piece, of course, but he looked pretty damn quick when he put the swords back, and he was like, "I'm going in, like I have to like take this animal down to save my fucking people." I saw a man move pretty damn quick, and like I know Zoro moves quick too sometimes, but I'm like, I'll give the slight edge to Odin on that one. Durability, I got Odin with that. When he took damage from Gold Roger, he didn't take that much damage. We look at Eustace Kid's situation. We all know what happened to him. He got obliterated. Arm destroyed, like his bones were broken and everything. Not that durable. But Odin's like the opposite of that. He took damage, but it was like very minimal. You couldn't see anything. The only thing that we saw from Odin was a little bit of blood on his head, and he kept running. He ran back. He was gonna try to, come back at Roger. And Zoro is known to take damage, and it's like known, it's seen, boom, blood spatter everywhere. When he takes damage, he's not durable. But I'll say that to say this: Zoro has better endurance, even before he had Conqueror's Hockey. Um, this man, and he, we seen what he did on Thriller Bark. He was able to withstand all that pain, right? That was not just his, but it was basically Luffy's pain that he, endured from Moria and uh, Oars June, or Oars, the real one. Um, Odin could endure pain as well. Don't think I forgot about what happened with him in the boiling water, but like Zoro's just shown more of that shit, And then in Wano, yeah, I know, and this is like during the times when he gets the hockey or whatever. So I won't say that right now. But he did show that shit before he had hockey, like the Conqueror's Hockey. He took all that pain from Luffy, you know, and like he had to take that shit all night, all day, all night. And then by the morning, he had so much blood loss. He was just standing there like nothing happened. Obviously, something happens, or we can tell that you're, not good. But he's like, nah. He endured the pain. Told himself this is, what has to be done. I can endure this. I got Zoro with the endurance on that one, but intelligence, I got Odin. Odin, Zoro. I don't think Odin was a dumbass. Maybe not the smartest person in the world, but he had to like, run his own part of Wano. He became a daimyo. He took Curry from being, gentrified and other things and turned it into a, place that was his. He became the daimyo of Curry, right? You can't be a dumbass and do things like that. You have to have some type of like brains. And I ain't saying Zoro's, we know he's not the smartest. I just give it to Oden. Experience Oden. Oden's been around. He does his thing with the two sword style. He's damn good at it too. Fought against Gold Roger, fought against Whitebeard, fought against Kaido. Some real heavy hitters. You know, he lived through the like Gold Roger and Whitebeard shit, but then when he fought against Kaido, he ended up losing his life. Um, and not because of he was weak, it was because that's just how the story goes, right? Zoro's experience is pretty damn good too, but I still give it to Oden. Close skills. He turned one of his blades, well, not black, but he took care of his blade so much so that when Zoro inherited Emma, that the sword could tell this ain't Oden. This is some boy who has like no idea what I was able to do. Like actually knows what's going on. He had that type of connection with his sword, just like Ryuma did with Black Blade Chusui. Um, but he didn't turn it black. But he was probably in the process of doing that shit. Oden was. But he met his end. In a fucked up way. It was sad and other things. But close skills go to Zoro. Yeah, Zoro is like more of an attacker type. I'd say even more than Oden. Um, he's gonna be in that shit real good. And then range skills, I got Oden. Oden can shoot those little hockey attacks. Zoro don't really do that too much. He does sometimes, but not all the time. And they're just more powerful. So then I got Riku. That goes to Zoro. We just seen him recover and other things. Now we seen Oden. He recovers and other stuff, right? But he died. You know, we've seen Zoro since the beginning of the series. Come back from all kinds of things, the Mihawk slash and all kind of shit. We got Zoro with the Riku, but then the hacks go to Oden because he does have um, better sword skill at this point. And then, and slightly too, not by any large margin. I wouldn't say. Not me. I'm not saying that. And he's a conqueror. Zoro's not known to be one yet. He hasn't awakened that part yet. See, this scenario wants to, and then the environment obviously goes to Oden because that's why we were fighting in Wano. So 8-3 on the attribute side of things, but as far as the fight goes, it goes to Oden, and he wins high diff because, like I said, I think that endurance of Zoro carries him a lot during that fight. He's like in some of those areas, right? And so with some of those attributes I was running off to you, they're like actually closer than you think, even before Zoro has Conqueror's Haki. Now we give him the Conqueror's Haki that we've seen, because we know he does now. Zoro now has strength. He's still learning Emma a little bit, but he's like doing things with Emma. He did it on Egghead Island. He ain't having as hard a time as controlling it. What I'm basically trying to say is he's learning that he can take his sword, bend it to his will, and know how to use it. That's not strength feats, but it is though, because guess what? A sword has a will of its own, and you have to like fuck with it for a while. He had problems on Wano. In Egghead, I didn't see him have problems with it. Oden stronger, Zoro stronger, with the Conqueror's Haki like on top of that. With that, I'm gonna say physical strength goes to Zoro. He always trained. Oden, he's Oden. He's they're like neck and neck, I believe, but I still think Zoro currently is stronger. Speed, Oden. You could give it to Zoro if you wanted to. But I just think he was moving quick when he was alive. He wasn't playing games and shit. Like Zoro don't either. Um, but with the speed aspect of things, I think that goes to Odin. Durability goes to Odin still. Like Zoro still gets hit with the task, and his skin is not as durable as other people's. But like I said, Zoro is known to endure long battles. He and like that's the thing with the King fight. He wasn't carrying that shit out. He wasn't trying to. But with the Lucci fight, I do believe Zoro was carrying that shit out. That's just me as a One Piece fan, because I know that Zoro's like he's past Lucci. Like he's just trying to figure some things out with the swords. Do I really have to fight this guy at full power? Or do I have to, you know, trying to gauge himself against a awakened zone type? Endurance goes to Zoro. He was in that fight with King. Before that, he was fighting on the rooftop against Kaido and Big Mom. Took a combined attack from him. Then he, damaged Kaido. After being fatigued and shit, then he, got back and threw the apple chopper. But he still was doing shit. Oden, only thing he did was boiling oil for an hour. I think Zoro could do that too. I actually do. Zoro will be feeling more pain, but he's gonna endure that pain and basically, outlast it. Intelligence goes to Oden. Zoro, not the smartest character in One Piece. We know this. Experience goes to Oden still. You could give it to Zoro if you wanted to, but I'm still give it to Oden. Close skills, Zoro. Zoro's one of those people who, don't go around. He gets up close and personal when he's in a fight with somebody. He's there. Let's do this thing already. Let's go. Odin's like that too, but we've seen it more with Zoro. Don't even act like we haven't. Range skills, Zoro. Now, Zoro can shoot those little attacks, ranged attacks, right? Shoot his hockey out. I believe when he's doing that shit now, it's more powerful than Odin's. I do. Because his Conqueror's hockey is just, oof. Once he gets the hang of it for real, Miyaka is in for a real fight, boy. Recoup, that goes to Zoro again because we've seen him recover from things more so than Oden has, and Oden does recover and other things, but we've seen it more with Zoro, so I give it to Zoro. Hacks go to Zoro now because he has Conqueror's Haki. And if a character like that has Conqueror's Haki, man, he is in there now. When a fight with Oden, yeah, he's in there. Even if Odin's more experienced, Zoro just has that about him where he's a quick learner, is what I'm saying. He was able to turn the fucking tide of that battle with King, and he was dealing with Emma still not being fully under his control, but he was like, hey, I can't die here. I gotta win. And he made it, happen. But hacks go to Zoro, and he has the Conqueror's Haki now, right? And, the King of Hell, and Ma on his side. He has those two swords. The sword that Odin had. Now, Odin knows how to use the sword too. Would have, I don't know. But they can make two of them, Fuck it. We'll give Zoro Shusui back. And he's still doing that shit to Odin. He's still, beating Odin. We ain't gonna do that. We're gonna in this scenario as well, he has Black Blade Shusui on his side. Now, guess what? He don't have that blade fighting against him at all. There's no hockey drainage or none of that shit. Even though we know in Egghead that he actually had more mastery over it by that point. We gotta remember that Odin, that was his sword originally, so we'll give that sword back to him, and then we'll give Zoro that Shusui blade. So now, man, Zoro's just cooking with that sword. We've seen him do that. And like I said, he's a conqueror too. Better conqueror than Oden, I will say by that. Environment goes to Oden though, because we're still fighting on Wano. And Oden would fight hard for Wano. Zoro was there. And he didn't want him there. So 6-5, I got Zoro winning in the attributes. And the fight is actually extreme diff. Oden's not going to be a pushover during that fight. Zoro's going to actually, and if this fight actually ended up happening, which it won't, but if it did, Zoro would like learn so much from that fight. That would have been a fight that Zoro would have like learned a lot from. If it did ended up happening, but it never would, because we understand the story and shit. Oden died a long time ago. Zoro, before Zoro was even a thought, and Zoro came back to Wano, or came to Wano, and he did his thing. His daughter fell for him or whatever, and he got the sword, Odin's sword, because he had to change out Black Blade Chusa because it's a natural treasure. And then Sukiyaki was like, "Hey, you can take this blade." And they advised him to not do it because, taking somebody else's blade when they've been feeding that blade for so long, the sword might lash out against you. And it did, but Zoro was still able to, call upon its power when he needed to. So Zoro loses in the first scenario, high diff. Oden wins in the second scenario. Zoro wins extreme diff. But by the end of the series, Zoro, y'all, I think he's gonna be on par with some real characters. Mark my words, but be cool, call on the corner.